Camera number 52 of 365 is the 1976 Xenon CE2 Mematron, a aperture priority SLR with a 42 M screw mount. So looking on the front of the camera, we have on the right hand side here the two flash ports depending on what flash we're using. We have a exposure memory lock and self-timer. Now the camera only has a 90th of a second as a manual mode because the camera requires a battery to operate its meter and its shutter, but useful to have the 90th of a second should the battery fail. So to put the battery in, we need to go to the base of the camera. So the battery required for the CE2 Mematron is this 6.2 volt 4SR44, and the positive terminals placed that way down, and then putting the battery cover, it only goes about a quarter of a turn. Oh, there we go. And then around the back we have a little light, don't know whether you can see that, that turns on, showing us that the battery is good. The light goes on every time we take an exposure, which can be a sort of distraction slightly, but when it starts to fail, then the battery needs to be replaced. So let's just go to the top of the camera now. Starting on the right hand side, our film wind-on and shutter counter, or our film counter, beg your pardon. We also have provision to do multiple exposures with this lever. The shutter release has a lock mechanism, and then our shutter speeds go from 1/2000th of a second down to bulb. It is an aperture priority, so putting it on auto and we can change the aperture. The camera will choose the most appropriate shutter speed. On the other side of the camera we have a film speed selector, which it's slightly awkward sometimes because it moves as well, but it's actually, there's a little pin just here which we have to use to rotate the inner dial. I found sometimes that the actual exposure compensation was activated as well if we're not careful, +2 and -2, so you have to be careful there. And the way we do that, we have to actually set the window of the film speed against the red dot, and then there's no exposure compensation being added. One final feature which I've actually had to just check because I'd completely forgotten was this little lever here, which actually is a blind for the viewfinder. Should we be doing nighttime photography, we don't want any extraneous light going through, so we can close that off, but must remember to open it back up so we can look at what we're taking. So let's just screw the lens back onto the camera, and it's time to put film through the camera. And to put film through the camera, we lift the film rewind, and that allows us to open the door of the film chamber. So let's see what the shutter sounds like. As you can tell, the camera does quite a good job of dampening the sound down, but it's quite distinctive. To take the film out, we simply press the button on the base and then rewind the film back into the canister. And there we go. Camera number 52 of 365, the Chinon CE2 Memetron.